WrestleMania 42 main event was ridiculous. This is a symbol wrestling as the backdrop. So we're going to talk about the night one of WrestleMania and the main event. And it was a tough one. I'm not going to lie. It was a tough. I did myself no favors, okay? Because in the lead up, I like to put WrestleMania on like first thing in the morning and just watch WrestleManias all day. So I watched WrestleMania 17 and 18 before 42. And those could not have been two worse choices to watch before this show. Because 17 and 18 are incredible shows. They're pomp, they're circumstance. 17, arguably like the greatest WrestleMania ever. Certainly one of the greatest. Rock, Austin, it's like the true tip of the cap to that era and tip of the cap to, the Mr. McMahon character, Austin, all that stuff. And then 18, Toronto is an insane venue. The Hogan Rock match and Austin and Hall and just the NWO, and then you had 42, or at least the way I was watching it, and it was the most soulless wrestling show I think I've ever watched, especially for WrestleMania. And a lot of people are going to point to the ads and the commercials and all that stuff, but what I think is even worse was the actual product. I don't care if you have ads. I'll scan a QR code to get DoorDash credits if you want me to, however you want me to do it. You can have a Slim Jim sponsored ladder match. I don't really care. You can have Slim Jims as the actual ladders. I don't care. As long as the matches, the storyline, the build up, all that stuff is good. That wasn't the case here. Yes, we had a ton of ads and commercial breaks and all that. Why we're having commercial breaks, I have no idea. Just a static graphic of commercial break. There was only 3 matches on the card that went over 9 minutes. It's kind of wild, right? It was like one of the, I think the second or third shortest women's championship match in the history of WrestleMania. Vakir and Liv went just over 6 minutes. The main event went, 20 minutes. Like the wrestling itself, it just felt like there was like less than an hour and a half of total wrestling in a 4-hour show, which is kind of wild. But just everything from the set, I'm not like a set guy, but everything from the set to the entrances just kind of felt very blasé, very sterile, very just kind of here it is. Like that set, one of the weakest WrestleMania sets, and it's not like they were in a weird building. They were in Las Vegas. They were in a building that they're familiar with. They're in a building that certainly can do this kind of thing. So we'll talk about it all at length here, and let's let this young bull start.
So the ending to WrestleMania Night 1 was odd. That was confusing. Full of something, wasn't it? Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the show. My name is Matt. Good to have you. Good to see you. We are going to go through the main event and a few other little talking points about WrestleMania Night 1. This is not a full review. I really want to just give you my overall thoughts of the main event, and then tomorrow I will actually have the full in-depth review of Night 1. But I want to just highlight a few things for you before we just get right into this main event. Number one, I thought WrestleMania Night 1 was a commercial. I thought there were some good moments. There were some highlights in there.
The 2 highlights were Paige returning, which they announced before, which I don't understand. Why announce it before? And then Michael Cole, during the broadcast, was like, no one could have expected Paige to be here. It's like, brother, they announced it. Like, we knew Paige was going to be there. It was well known. Everyone knew it was going to happen. So they spoiled their own arguably biggest moment of the entire night with Paige, knowing that Paige was going to be the entrant. And then the other highlight was Braun Breaker coming out. And, what it is what it is. But Braun's got to get better at these spears. I mean, he's getting like cartoonishly close to just straight up missing the person he's spearing. I mean, he's doing somersaults and backflips to, whatever. But those were the 2 big moments, was Paige returning and Braun returning. Everything else was just kind of whatever until the main event, which is the main event, so it's going to have the biggest storyline around it.
But I couldn't help but feel like there's this overwhelming sense that this was very middle of the road. Matches were short, real short.
Really
I think
short,
WrestleOps had a tweet that went out, and they said it was like there were 8-minute, 7-minute, 10-minute matches. I think Gunther was something like 14. This lacked so much for
the 3 matches were Gunther, Rollins, Fatu, and McIntyre, and then the main event with the 3 matches that went over 9 minutes.
WrestleMania Night 1. terms of giving the matches time to breathe, to allow things to happen, it was not okay. The amount of Hulk Hogan commercials, everybody, oh my goodness. Okay, so having said that, let's get into the main event and talk about this confusing, just smorgasbord of events that occurred.
All right, so the main event, there's 3 storylines that are working in the main event. The storyline 1 is that Cody and Randy have this this confusing, complicated history where Randy's Cody's mentor and that whole thing. All right, that's storyline 1. Storyline 2 is that Cody has to be more of a heel. He's got to be more of a bad boy. He's got to be more of an evil guy in order to beat Randy Orton. We go back to like Stephanie, the conversation she had with Cody, where if you want to beat Randy, you've got to hear the voices and you've got to be evil and you've got to be whatever. So we had that happening. And then, of course, the Pat McAfee jelly roll, what the hell ever. Randy's going to save wrestling. Pat McAfee hates the current business or whatever's happening. Those 3 things were all happening at the same time. And at different moments, they were conflicting for your attention. Obviously, at the beginning, you get the Pat McAfee stuff. In the middle, you have the Cody, Randy, mentor, master, student thing. At the end, you have a kind of a competing thing between the Pat storyline and then the Cody needs to be a bad guy storyline. And if you go back and listen to the commentary, Michael Cole is kind of conflicting and he's kind of competing for what storyline he's talking about. At the very end, he talks about how Cody didn't hesitate and Cody hit the crossroads and whatever, and he did what he didn't do against Cena, and he did this, and this. In the middle of it, he's talking about the master and student thing. And at the beginning, he's just running down Pat McAfee, and we have all that. So I wasn't even sure which direction they were going with. And because you had the 3 competing storylines, none of them really got their shine. It should have just been master student. Can Cody be evil enough? Can Cody be heel enough in order to deal with the Viper Randy Orton? Another part of this that, well, I don't know if it's a work or a shoot, or I'm shooting myself into a work, but the Randy back injury thing. So this is something that was not talked about at all previously. Immediately, you could tell Randy's walking very gingerly. I've messed up my sciatica a few times, and it looked exactly how it is when you do that, where it's hard for you to walk. It's hard for you to stand up. You got to like push off your legs to stand up. You have nothing, right? And that's how Randy was moving. And I'll tell you when I knew something was off is at the beginning of the match when Pat attacks Cody. If you watch Randy roll out the ring, he rolls out the ring and looks like he's been wrestling for 2 hours. He rolls out the ring super gingerly. He looks horrible, looks stiff, and that's not a euphemism. That's why I think it might have been legit. I think Randy legitimately tweaked his back to the point where it was like, look, man, I can barely walk, I can barely stand, but we can try and get through this somehow. But that made the match even more slow and even of a worse pace and even just so plotting, which didn't help to anything because that's how the entire evening felt.
Matt gets his own entrance. Cody, Randy get their entrance. The crowd throughout all of this obviously is very, very behind Randy Orton. And they, as the match went on and as more things happened, they were less into Cody Rhodes with all.
Then you had that. You had the 3 competing. The heel in this, the bad boy, is Pat McAfee. He's getting booed. People hate him. Okay, he's flipping off the crowd when he walks down. People generally like Randy in this match, in this build-up. They like Randy Orton as a character. They like him. They respect his career. They want to see him win another championship. And there is some fatigue for Cody Rhodes, right? Especially with the older audience. The younger audience love him. I was talking to my wrestling group as we were watching it, and I was saying it might be time to get Scott Hall and the cattle prod out for Cody. And that obviously is referencing when they ended Goldberg's streak, and Nash has talked about that it was time to end the streak. And if you go back and watch, people were booing Goldberg. And they cheered Nash winning because they were ready. They just wanted to see something else. And I think there is a little bit of that fatigue. And at WrestleMania, you do expect, like, you know, a title change and big things to happen.
Love this. Pat does the introductions for Randy Orton. Then Cody does his thing. And then Pat ends up attacking Cody before the bell rings, which I think was a smart move. And I think that worked really well because they were trying to seemingly get this out of the way.
Now, this part I also I've heard that, and I'm kind of lukewarm on that idea too, because that's the big storyline. That's the big build. Like, even if you don't like it, that's been the biggest part of the last couple of weeks. So we're not even starting the match yet, and we're going to get the Pat McAfee Jelly Roll situation. Now, Pat does come back out, so the idea that, like, they were just getting out of the way. He did have the biggest part in this match at the end, too, so it's not like it was just like, okay, get this over with and be done with it. But I did think it was kind of weird where it's like, all right, we're going to do this thing, have no pomp and circumstance to it. We're just going to do it, and then we'll start the match. And then you don't have to worry about Pat McAfee interfering at any point during the match. You don't have to worry about Jelly Roll. You just, we'll do this thing, check this box, and then move on. And that made it feel even more sterile. It's like the Mike Tyson, Stone Cold, Shawn Michaels thing. If they would have done all the Mike stuff right off the bat, and I know like this is a little bit different because Tyson ended up swerving on Shawn and ended up whatever with the fast count, but it's kind of like the inverse of McAfee, where McAfee does a slow count sort of, gets attacked by Orton. It's kind of similar to Tyson doing the fast count, attacking Shawn. It's just like the flip, right? But that was the whole point of the build. So even though Tyson didn't do anything until the end, the fact that he was just out there, but like having him do all his stuff before the match, then Austin Michaels happened, and then Tyson does the fast count. It would have just felt like it would have felt like it just wouldn't have been the same.
And give everyone the bulk of the match. So I did appreciate that. Going into this too, there were reports, and then commentary even talked about it, that Randy Orton is dealing with an injury, supposedly a back injury. So they played into that. They leaned into that for this whole match. And I'm kind of wondering, based on the outcome, did that factor into the decisions made for this entire main event? So Cody,
I look, like I said, I might be working myself into a shoot. I fully believe that Orton's hurt and tweaked it. And if you ever hurt your sciatica, and like you can just bend down. The 2 times I've hurt it the most, one time was deadlifting, but the other time was I picked up a golf ball. I was golfing, I picked up a golf ball, and I felt like someone shot me in the back. Now I couldn't move, couldn't bend over, couldn't do anything, and it lasted for weeks. So I'm not, I have no idea if this happened, but if Randy messed up his back that day and did something like that, and it could be anything, getting out of a car, bending over, whatever, then yeah, I could see where it's like, look, brother, we got to figure something out because I got a match in 8 hours here. And the way that he was moving, the way the commentators were talking about it, it really didn't make any sense for the story. So I think it was just they were kind of trying to cover up, or they were trying to explain why the match looked how it looked. They were trying to explain to the audience, we know Randy can barely move. We know he looks like he's been through a 2-hour-long Iron Man match. This is why. And it's because he has this mysterious back injury. And yeah, I mean, he could barely run the ropes. If you go back and watch, when Cody throws him to the ropes or throws him into the turnbuckle, Randy can barely move his feet. He can barely even get there. He's falling all over himself. So I think it was legit. And I think they just kind of tried to smooth it over with this half-baked storyline that he had a back injury.
He gives Pat a crossroads right away. Cody takes Pat onto the announcer's table, takes him outside, and then Quantum Leap Jelly Roll appears out of nowhere, just nowhere, and he goes and does a diving elbow from one table to the other and takes out Pat. This was great, only in that it was going to eliminate these guys. The rumor was going around that there's going to be a tag team match at Backlash. I do wonder, is that actually going to happen or not? And yeah, we got Pat McAfee stretchered out eventually. This part took way too long for me. Like, Randy had just rolled out of the ring, was standing there for, felt like a good 5 minutes straight, and Cody looking on. They just waited and waited and waited. They stretchered Pat out. He's gone. Jelly Roll leaves too. And then we get the match. And this was very much a Cody Rhodes, Randy Orton slow burn match. Very much a Randy Orton match. Slow, slow, slow. And again, could be that way because that's just the way they wanted to build it. It could be because it's due to injury. And I understand that. It just wasn't really for me for the pacing of it. However, I will say, as the match went on and the match got goofier and sillier, I guess I was kind of into it. It was just a pure curiosity for this.
The match at the very end was fine. Like, whenever it came to the RKOs and the crossroads and all of that, like, okay, I'm all right, let's see what happens here. But the actual match was super grueling, super rest hold centric, super slow. And again, I think it's because of Randy's back.
Main event for me. That's what it was. And maybe you liked it, and that's okay too. Maybe you hated it, and that's fine too. I'm kind of like in the middle of just like silliness and just.
Well, you also got to remember, like as just a match, right? Like whatever, like sure, it's just a Randy Orton match. It's just a slow, plodding, methodical. Like his matches are all kind of the same. But this is a WrestleMania main event of a really bad show. So stack it up against other WrestleMania main events. And if you stack it up with something like The Miz and Cena, or just another WrestleMania main event that people just kind of generally or just whatever on, this match is way worse. And you would have to go really far back to find a WrestleMania main event where just the match itself was as weak as this match.
How really flipped this whole main event felt in terms of the roles and how the crowd reacted and shifted and involvement of everybody. So this match also didn't have a lot of sense built into it for me because Randy Orton gets bloody, and that was a cool visual. Yeah. But as Randy Orton has the blood and things are progressing, you're getting more sympathy, it seemed like, on Randy Orton in this thing. Because the crowd is obviously, they're firmly behind Randy, and they were booing Cody more and more as this thing went on. And Cody...
I think when you get to... I mean, this is like, we'll have to have a TED Talk on this, but when you get to main event or WrestleManias and events like this, I think it's difficult to judge the correct audience because the only people that can be there are adults usually because the tickets are so expensive. So you're going to get a different crowd than I guess like because Cody's fans are predominantly younger. Same with like Cena, right? So but you're not going to have that many of those fans because the show is so expensive and it's in Las Vegas and it's not catered to that. So even though it seems like Randy was getting cheered, it's because the people that are there are older. They're grew up with Randy Orton. They know Randy Orton over the last 20 years. They're marks, so I don't think it's necessarily like Randy's this huge baby face. It's just, but in that building, he certainly was getting cheered more.
He's taking advantage. But because they got the blood and the way like Randy would do facial expressions and react, it was almost giving him, you would think he's the baby face. So as it was continuing on, you'd have Cody then like flipping his ear to listen to the crowd. Like he's acknowledging that he hears everybody, that everything that he was doing, he was getting booed and Randy was getting cheered. Then you had Cody, he did a draping DDT, Randy's move, he did it to Randy Orton, that got booed. Randy hits a crossroads to Cody, and that got cheered. Cody hits an RKO. There were a lot of RKOs. How many were there? I lost count after 5. So there's an RKO by Orton, and the crowd goes absolutely insane for it. They also did the yeah and boos back and forth, and during that whole sequence, I'm highlighting that because they were booing Cody every single time, and they were cheering Randy. And Cody's doing thumb to the eye. So here's the thing.
Yeah, that was another one. So now that is the storyline, okay? Which got completely lost because there's 3 competing storylines and all that. Cody doing all of that is him showing he's being evil, he's being a heel, he's being a bad boy because that's what it takes to beat Randy Orton. The low blow, the eye gouge, like all that stuff. That's what that's showing. But it's easy to forget that because you're like, it's like, well, oh yeah, I forgot that was a thing. Oh yeah, I forgot that was even part of this.
You have Cody throughout all of this after like the blood hit and Cody, doing thumb to the eye. And
yeah, if you think about it from what I just explained, it's like, oh yeah, I remember Stephanie's conversation. Oh, that's why Cody busted open Randy Orton. That's why he thumbed him in the eyes. That's why he low blowed him.
Doing a few more, I guess, heelish things throughout. I understand within the story at least, or at least my interpretation is Cody's doing that because that's him doing what everyone's telling him to do. Get more aggressive, get to Randy's level, push the envelope, go to the edge, go to the extreme. And him saying in his promo on SmackDown, whatever it was, like 2 weeks ago, I don't know if I can do that. I appreciate that it seemed like they were trying to do that in this match, that Cody is just, he's going to any lengths he can to keep the belt. So if that's the, interpretation I'm supposed to have, then that worked. Because I got that. I was like, okay, they're doing a lot more heel things, like thumb to the eye. Like, come on, like, Cody's trying to just almost cheat to win. He's just trying to do anything to beat Randy. So I liked that part, but it didn't work totally for me because you had so much, it felt like just so much sympathy on Randy. So after the thumb to the eye, Randy hits an RKO to Little Nick.
But all of that should work. But again, the storyline is so convoluted with all the other stuff that you forget it even was a part of it. that should have been the main part of this. What they should be doing, and I'll put my Booker Man hat on for a second here. What they should be doing is make Cody this hyper babyface, like he's a superhero, but he is so desperate to be the superhero, so desperate to be the champion, so desperate to win these matches that he's actually a heel. And he's like the anti-hero. Even in his mind, he's still the superhero, but in reality, he's like an anti-hero. He's like the guy from The Boys or whatever, like the main character. That's what I think the final version of Cody needs to be, where he's just an out of control, completely selfish, completely whatever champion who thinks he's a face when in reality he's a heel. And that's where I would go with his character. And this would have been a good first step in that, where he thinks he's doing all this good stuff, but he's actually busting open Randy Orton. He's low blowing him. He's eye gouging him. He's doing all that, doing whatever it takes to win. But that part of the storyline was kind of, it was like a footnote to everything else, and it should have been the driving force behind this entire build.
So the referee,
and if you go back and look at the build package that they showed before the match, it was very little Pat McAfee. It was a lot of the master student. It was a lot of Cody from 15 years ago. It was a lot of that, and it was very little Pat McAfee and Jelly Roll. And that's how it probably should have played out. I don't know why the Jelly Roll Pat McAfee stuff got kind of shoehorned in there.
He gets RKO'd and he's taken out of there. And I thought, okay, we got a big moment coming here. Cody hits a low blow to Randy. And then, the cutter into the RKO, which was a cool sequence. And again, it goes
awesome,
back to Cody being desperate. So I appreciated that. It leans into just how the fans were receiving him. And also, I think with that, him knowing going into this thing that he's probably going to get booed. Like, Cody can read a crowd. So I think they were just like, let's just roll with that. Like, let's just roll with the reaction, what we're getting. But then you have Pat McAfee, and he comes sprinting down, and this is the goofiest thing ever.
Yeah, so this part, people are like, well, they got the Pat McAfee stuff out of the way. It's like, no, they didn't. He was part of the entire finish. Like, what do you mean? What do you mean they got it out of the way? He was the finish of this match.
Has the neck brace on and a referee shirt, and he's running full tilt. And he's perfectly fine after taking that elbow. So not only did none of it affect him, and he didn't sell any of it as he's coming down to the ramp full speed. I think it's a hilarious visual. When anyone's got the neck brace, it's always comedy. So it went from like this serious.
Yeah, Pat, this part was like this cartoonishly. It was kind of a funny thing, but it's like, wait, I thought he got stretchered out. Like he's got the sunglasses back on. You know what I mean? He got stretchered out. He got put through a table, whatever. I get this part, but it doesn't connect with the other part. It doesn't match up with the other part. If he wants to look like he's hurt, if he wants to do whatever, which I guess is the neck brace, but
angle that's going on in the ring with the blood and everything, to goofy Pat McAfee with a neck brace running down to try and get involved with a referee shirt that he would have found somewhere backstage, throws it on, runs in, 1, 2, kick out. Why?
All right, this part is confusing as well. So Pat is doing all of this for Randy Orton. He comes in there and he does the count, and he does like a pump fake after 2. Whether it was Pat messing stuff up, whether it was supposed to be a slow count, whether it was supposed to be a little hitch in his giddy up, whatever was supposed to happen, I have no idea. And it's very confusing. Why didn't he fast count? That's what would have made sense. He gets in here, he fast counts, Cody kicks out. Like, that makes sense. That's fine. Okay. Understand that. I don't understand the count, and it might have just been Pat messing up. I have no idea, but I don't get why the count was so off. Whether it was because it was off. It was either, and it might have been off with just the kick out or whatever. It might have been supposed to be a normal count. Cody kicks out, but it looks like Pat, when he's going down for 3, it looks like he pauses. Cody kicks out, and then it just looked real. It looked weird.
Didn't Pat just do a quick Shane McMahon count 1, 2, 3 and give Randy the win? I don't know. He went with a standard referee count, which didn't make any sense for Pat McAfee, but still, they got to 2. There was a kick out. Randy then hits Pat with an RKO.
This part makes no sense either. Randy and Pat have been working together this entire time. Pat is coming out to help Randy Orton. The count goes however it goes. If Randy loses, Pat said that he'll be out of the business forever. Is this Randy sacrificing himself for the business to get Pat out of the business? Is this Randy acknowledging that Pat screwed him over? Is this Randy just kind of going crazy because he just RKO'd Robinson, which was the perfect ref bump, by the way. He took the RKO better than I've ever seen anyone take it. Is this just a continuation of that where Randy's just losing control and he's just RKOing every referee he sees? What exactly was this supposed to be?
So we appreciate that. This makes me feel like they're not doing this whole Backlash match. Like this whole thing is off. Cody.
They can't. I mean, if the whole thing is right, because Pat said if Randy loses, he'll never be on the show again. He'll never be wrestling again. That would be kind of insane if he says that Randy loses, he's wrestling at the next pay-per-view.
He then hits the crossroads to Orton, and Cody retains. Yeah, they didn't go with Randy as champion. So you've had Cody take out Pat come in to try and save everything. Randy getting rid of Pat McAfee, so that's over with. Jelly Roll didn't even come back out. So by Pat's statement that he made before, that if Randy doesn't win, he will leave the business. He'll never show up ever again. So is WWE and TKO, are they going to actually do that? Are they going to follow with what they were saying and spouting on TV like twice, where he won't show up ever again? I kind of wonder if that is the plan here. If this injury with Randy is legitimate, and it seems to be, because they're talking about it endlessly, and it was all the chatter right before WrestleMania. If Randy, they didn't put the belt on Randy because he was injured, or this was the plan all along, right? That's usually what we get told, is like, oh, did you like the show? No, but that seems to be the plan. Then, okay, what are you going to do now? Did they pivot because Randy has a legitimate injury?
But this is the weird part too. All right, so Randy does what he does with Pat, whatever, gets the crossroads, Cody wins, Cody shows that, and the ending is supposed to be he didn't hesitate, he took the opportunity, he saw his chance, Randy wasn't looking, who cares, Cody wins. All right, well then Randy punts Cody, which is certainly a heel thing to do, right? You just lost the match, you attack Cody after the match, you punt him, something you haven't done in a decade, you bust his eye wide open. Cody's eye was jacked up after the kick, so Randy kicked the hell out of him. And then Randy poses with the title, and this is one of my biggest pet peeves in wrestling, is when WrestleMania is the continuation of a story. When WrestleMania should be the end of a story. WrestleMania should not continue a storyline. It should not be this thing happened at WrestleMania to set up Backlash or to set up Cody versus Randy Part 2. I hate that. WrestleMania should be the storyline happen all the way to Mania, happens at Mania, you get your closure. Raw after Mania starts all the new stories. So Randy attacking Cody, punting Cody, holding the title up. What is that? Is that us saying? Is that Randy saying, "I'm not done with Cody. I'm going to win this championship"? Brother, you just lost in the main event at WrestleMania. Like we just watched you lose. This all should have already been taken care of. And then Cody, and then the show's over. You know, it's not like something else happens. It's just over. And then we see in the post, whatever they call it, with Jackie Redmond on the ramp, Cody kind of walks up the ramp, Randy walks up the ramp, and the show's just over. Very rarely will you see this, where you see someone leave Mania with heat that's not the champion. That the last image of this WrestleMania night was the person who lost the match holding the title, and the babyface champion not even, on the ground, dead to the world.
And they can't do any of these plans, and they're going to write him off, and Cody's got the belt again. Things didn't end, though, because they're going to get a little bit more, I guess, confusing. So Cody holds up the belt at the very end, and he's getting booed by everybody. Orton then grabs the belt off of Cody, hits him with it, hits a punt kick to Cody as well, and Randy just stands tall in the middle of the ring to end WrestleMania Night 1, and the crowd is kind of confused. So they've gotten rid of Pat, seemingly. That relationship and story arc, maybe that's over with, and they're just not going to continue it anymore. Randy's still bad guy, but again, is he going to be written off with the injury? If he was going to be injured, like written off as a full injury, wouldn't they want Randy to not really stand tall at the end of WrestleMania? I don't know. Maybe they will continue stuff. Maybe they will do something in Backlash. Maybe they will just do the Backlash tag team match, because they'll say, oh, we got on the right page and we're just going to do it anyways.
But even if, and that's, I can't stand, if Randy fights Cody at Backlash, that it's like, well, what did I watch WrestleMania for? Like, what is WrestleMania just a feeder show for Backlash? Is that what we're doing? Is WrestleMania just setting up Backlash? Is Backlash the biggest show of all time now? I don't want to see the WrestleMania main event part 2 at Backlash. I want the WrestleMania main event to be the story. Even if Randy beats Cody at Backlash, how bad would that be? Like, why wouldn't you just do it at WrestleMania? So I really hope they don't do this, but obviously they are. Otherwise, why would Randy have stood tall with the title and attacked Rhodes after? Why would they have done that?
Cody is interesting in all of this. Again, I'm going to go back and say because he was seemingly very much a heel. And I don't say like he had a heel turn, but by any means, no, he did not turn heel. Cody's actions in the match were desperate. Again, I go back to the earlier point.
Which was part of the story.
This falls in line with Cody's statement, Stephanie McMahon telling him, everyone telling him that he needs to go and push the envelope. So he did, and he got booed for it. Cody retains. The problem I think they got now is like they're just kind of in a hard place. They're going to have Cody come out on Raw or SmackDown, and the guy's going to probably get booed. Like the ending with Randy standing tall after he punt kicked him, the crowd cheers for it. So now you're going to have Cody come out and say, I defied the odds and I beat Randy. You didn't stand tall. You were broken and defeated in the ring.
This part is the weird part. I think it would be great storytelling if Cody comes out, he acts like he's the champion hero who vanquished Randy at WrestleMania. Everyone's kind of pseudo booing him, whatever. But Cody's acting like he's getting cheered because Cody's kind of in this delusional, desperate place where he thinks he's doing the right thing, but it's actually the wrong thing. And he is completely oblivious to the boos. And it just kind of ramps up and ramps up and ramps up. I think that part is a very complex, interesting story. What makes that hard to do is when Cody gets punted and Randy stands tall, because now you should have sympathy for Cody, right? Cody won the match. After the match, he was attacked, blindsided by Randy. He was punted. His eye was swollen shut. So he isn't an anti-hero in that situation. He is the victim. He is the one who's like, okay, you should probably feel bad. And maybe this is a way for them to try and swing that back. But again, that goes against the entire story of Cody having to be desperate or whatever. So they kind of half in, half out with that, and they're swinging way too far. Like they're swinging way too quick with heel actions. Cody, cool, but he gets punted and attacked afterwards, so he's a sympathetic babyface. Okay, Randy Orton is the heel, but he RKO'd Pat McAfee, which is like the most babyface thing a person can do in this storyline. Okay, but then he punts Cody Rhodes and attacks him after the match, which is the most heel thing you can do in the storyline. And those two things happen literally 2 minutes between each other.
So I don't think it gave any sympathy to Cody. No one's feeling bad for Cody. I think everyone's just feeling confused by everything. And I think it goes along with the overall feeling I had for night one, which was, this is very middle of the road. This dragged because of ads and commercials. None of the matches I felt like got to the next gear. Some standout stuff there's some positives in there, and we'll talk about that in the full review breakdown. But this main event, I was seriously just curious what they were going to do. They actually went with one of my ideas. Just not that they went with my idea, but they did one of the things I thought they might do, which was get the Pat Jelly stuff out of the way in the beginning, and they kind of did that. But then you got a really slow, long match. I'd love to know what you think. Like, please comment below, guys. What did you think of the main event? Did you find it like, oh, it totally worked and it played into everything? Did you feel like they had to pivot and change course with everything? Because I am curious what they will do on Raw, what they'll do next week on SmackDown. Are they going to do this tag team match? Are they going to go in a totally new direction? And the thing is, though, is that if Randy is actually injured and he's off TV now for a couple of weeks or months, sure, they can go back to this. They could revisit this all at like SummerSlam. Maybe they're going to give Randy the belt there. Who knows? But until then, you got Cody on TV. What's he going to do? Like, what's his character going to do? Because he's going to talk about how he had to do the low blows and thumb to the eyes and all this dastardly stuff to retain. The crowd isn't going to cheer him. Are they going to actually evolve Cody's character into more? And that's something I would be excited.
That's what I just said. That's what they should have done. But the second the attack happens after the match and the punt happens, you can't do that. You can't be this dastardly, will do anything to win, desperate hero when Cody ends the night getting punted and laying and gets cheap shotted and attacked from behind. Those two things are competing with each other. And when you have multiple things competing with each other, you leave very confused. Randy RKOing Pat and punting Cody are competing with each other. What I'm supposed to react to those two things in very different ways. I'm supposed to react to the Cody thing as, okay, Randy's a bastard. I'm supposed to react to the Pat thing like, okay, Randy's the man. Right? Like, Randy's the man, Randy's a bastard. I'm supposed to react, and they happen 2 minutes away from each other. So then what should I think at the end? Same thing with Cody. Am I supposed to believe he's this new dastardly hero, this anti-hero thing? Or am I supposed to believe that he's actually a good guy and I'm sympathetic towards him because he won but got attacked and now I feel bad for him?
To see, I don't want to see just plain old Cody Rhodes walk out on SmackDown smiling and slapping hands with kids and everything and being happy to be here. There needs to be more that's come out of all of this. The Pat stuff was goofy, like with the neck brace and everything. It was goofy. I'm glad they got rid of it to let the match breathe and he wasn't a distraction throughout all of it. But man, this felt like such a flip of roles where Randy just felt like the good guy, because I'm looking at crowd reaction and I'm looking at what Randy is doing and I'm looking at what Cody is doing. And roles were all over the place. So did it land as a main event for night one? I think there's intrigue in terms of, well, people will be talking about it. And
I that's something that Triple H says and people say all the time, and I hate it when they're like, well, it's got people talking. You want to see what's happening next. It's like, yeah, I know that just is baked into this. Of course I want to see what happens next. Like, that's how the show has gone for 30 years. Like, yeah, I want to see what happens. It doesn't mean I'm intrigued. Like, it doesn't mean that it's a good thing. It doesn't mean that I want to see because it's so exciting and it's so intense and it's so cool that I just can't wait to see the next episode. It's like the end of Game of Thrones, where it's like, yeah, I want to see the next episode because I want to see where are you going with this. It doesn't make any sense. What's the next step here? How are you going to fix this? How are you going to fix this is a very different way of watching than, man, I can't wait to see what happens. Those are not the same. But in both cases, technically, yeah, I want to see Raw. I'm going to watch Raw. But one is where you want to be, the story is so great, I can't wait to see the next step, versus this is a complete cluster. How are you going to fix what I'm watching? What are you going to do next? Because I know something has to happen. I know something has to take place to fix this.
I don't know if they're going to be talking favorably about it. I think Randy should have won. If there was no injury, that's the big question mark, is Randy actually injured legit and has to go away?
I don't think Randy should have won. I think what should have happened was Cody should have been a complete bastard. He should have been a heel, an anti-hero, and he should have been desperate enough to stoop to Randy's level. And if anything, I think Cody should have punted Randy. And really, again, I'll put my Booker hat on. If what should have happened is Cody should have low blowed Randy, eye gouge, whatever, attacked him from behind to win the match. After the match, he should have punted Randy, put him through a table, leave him stinking. Dastardly stuff. That's what he should have done. And Cody should have lost control. And Cody should, for lack of a better term, Cody should be the one now who hears the voices. And now Cody has this kind of weird heel side to him where if he has to tap into it, he can't. He can tap into this horrible person who does whatever he's got to do to maintain his status as hero champion. And then over the course of the next couple of months and feuds and whatever, you see more and more and more of that happening. Cody just stooping to lower and lower and lower lows to where he is a full-on heel, but in his own weird, warped mind, he is the hero. That should be the story. And that's a very, Shakespearean arc, and I think that's a complex story and a fun evolution of Cody's character. I think that would be cool. Kind of like what they did with Hogan in WCW before the NWO, where Hogan, he starts wearing black. He's not wearing red and yellow anymore. He shaves his mustache. We all remember all that. And Hogan's trying to kind of be this anti-hero thing. And then, the NWO comes in. It's a totally separate situation. But that's what they should have done with Cody. I don't think Randy should have went over. But the way that the match ended, you're kind of 30% in every bucket. You're 30% in Randy's the bad guy, 30% he's the good guy, 30%, you're kind of in the middle. Yeah, and then you got Cody. It's okay, 30% he's a heel, 30% babyface, 30% in the middle somewhere, and then you got some leftover percentages for Jelly Roll and Pat McAfee.
And they didn't put the belt on him. Yet Cody retains, so Cody's still champion. Who is he going to fight next? Is he going to get a one-on-one with Pat at Backlash? Like, are they just going to do that? I don't know. But you had a chance to give Randy the title, and I still think that putting the belt on a heel champion is the way to go. If Randy's going to be out for months, then so be it. You can't put the belt on him. But I think it still would have been cool that even if he's going to be out for a couple of weeks, have him just show up with the championship. That would have been a really cool thing. So it'll be interesting to see what they do.
Yeah, I mean, you have a bunch of marks, and you have a bunch of 40-year-olds who they remember Randy Orton, and they are in his corner because he But that's not. I don't think that's a reason to give Cody the title. Like, oh, it'd be cool to see Randy. It'd be cool to see Randy have the title again. It's like, I mean, go to eWrestlingNews.com and talk about it in the forums. That's a very marquee thing. I don't think Randy should have the title, but I don't think they did what they had to do to evolve Cody's story.
I didn't love it, and I thought overall,
and this would have been a really good opportunity. This would have been the perfect opponent to do that with Cody's character. Randy had the same thing happen when he fought Mick Foley. Randy's character at the time was a little too babyface. It was a little too, he's the young up and coming prodigy, whatever. And he needed some of that grit, and he needed some of that. Dolph Ziggler went through this problem too, where Dolph was a clean babyface, and he needed some grit. He needed a Mick Foley match, is what Dolph needed back in the day, and he never got it. But Randy got it with Foley. And that completely changed Randy's entire career, because then Randy had that dark side. He had that, he had that kind of grit and grime to him, and that's what Cody needs. And this would have been a perfect opponent for Cody to go to those depths, but it got kind of overshadowed.
WrestleMania was lacking some interest, and man, the amount of commercials and advertising. That Hulk Hogan ad ran way too much for me, brother. So I'll just give you my thoughts, reaction to Night 1. Stay tuned, because WrestleMania Night 1 review will be coming at you really, really soon. Thank you for watching. If you guys enjoyed.
Yeah, I mean, Night 1 was bad. No doubt about it. One of the worst, just like on its own, WrestleManias. On its own is probably the worst, but with these two-part things, you do kind of have to lump them together, because some stuff that happens in Night 1 can bleed over to Night 2. Night 2 can save Night 1. We've seen it before. And if Night 2 is incredible, then yeah, 42 can go down. It can go down very differently. But if 42 has a really hard carry, and it definitely has the matches that can. Punk and Reigns could be an absolute classic, and then all of a sudden we remember this favorably. But Night 1 was brutal, and if Night 2 goes on that same track, then it can be rough. But I mean, you got some really good stuff in Night 2, and maybe they should have flip-flopped some of that and given Night 1 a couple of those big pieces. But it was ugly, man. It was really bad. Like I said, the two standout things were Braun. I mean, the best match was Seth. Like, Seth and Gunther was the best match, but even that match was like, all right, it's fine, cool, sure. Best moments, like I said, Paige, which we already knew, and Braun. But Night 2's got a lot of work to do. All right, ladies and gentlemen, let me know what you thought. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next video.